Thank you so much. Well, it's really been a pleasure to hear about the research and actions from Susan and Ben. And as we reflect on this, I would certainly like to invite Susan and Ben to chime in, as they see fit, as we discuss some of the questions and repercussions of the pieces that they've put forward. I think overall, one of the things that we really want to hang on to from a K-12 lens is not just developing the data. I think the Massachusetts model is an excellent one, but how do we interpret the data? And when we're looking at what people are putting up from the chats and thinking through what our next steps are, not only at K-12 but at college institutions, what is the data telling us in terms of interpreting root cause? So, for example, when I start to think about how do we make the experience smaller for students, and by that, what I'm really thinking about, and Ben, I'd love for you to be able to chime in on this, in terms of building relationships with students through text or making them really want to make a connection with a faculty member or someone that makes them really want to be involved at the college level. How has your research, indicated that the students are building relationships? One of the things that we really try to do K-12, certainly in Rhode Island and certainly in other states in New England, is focus on advisories and really being sure that students are feeling a sense of belonging and making big institutions feel smaller. And so certainly, texting is one way to do that because it's a bit of personalization. But what we are really also trying to do is make sure that each student feels like they're not on their own. So Ben, I don't know if you want to chime in on any piece of that.
Sure, I'm happy to. I think it's a great question. And I think it's a particularly crucial question during these times of transition. So, when students are in a high school and feel that sense of belonging in a community that they're familiar with, especially with a strong advisory structure in place, like it sounds like you have, I think it's perhaps more straightforward to establish those relationships. Certainly, once students have successfully transitioned to college and identified a peer group or have gotten connected to a program of study, hopefully those relationships also have chances to form. I'm particularly interested in, as I mentioned, students navigating these kind of critical transitions and how we help students form relationships, form senses of belonging, and I think often very importantly overcome belonging anxiety as they move from one environment to another is really crucial. I will say that across projects we see students often very willing to engage in rich exchanges with people remotely via text or through other channels. Of course, I think they're most likely to do so when that individual on the other end is someone with whom they have a prior relationship or connection. So College Summit, which many of you may be familiar with, is a college success organization operating in lots of different parts of the country. They're doing really innovative work right now using peer leaders to stay connected to students via text as they transition from high school over the summer and into college as a way of kind of maintaining the relationship and helping students then establish similar networks when they've gone to higher education institutions. So I'll stop there just so others can engage as well, but I think it's a really crucial point.
And I think, certainly, as Ben indicates, being intentional about developing those relationships certainly is something that we focus on very much in the K-12 setting. I think another piece that we often hear from students when they come back to us, and this is more qualitative information that we get when we have a practice of interviewing our graduates a year later. And so we go to them and ask them, how was your first year? What did you learn? And, our goal is to get from them, did you feel well prepared? We often get back that the instruction can be very different between the high school level and the college level. And, one of the things I think about a lot is that there's a huge focus on pedagogy, on personalization of instruction, and effective use of instructional technology in many, pre-K-12 settings. One of the things that we often are trying to figure out is that same thing happening at the college level? And so we really want to be sure that we're using the best pedagogical practices as we do professional learning with our teachers. We often wonder, is the same thing happening at the college level in terms of engaging students and making the learning accessible to them?